Welcome back. You're watching the ET Money Show, and it's time for Tech Tuesday. We're talking about something a little offbeat today, but it's something that a lot of gamers will be interested in. Dhruv Bhutani, who is the editor at Android Authority, is joining me now. Dhruv, we're talking at a time when we're just a short while away from the launch of Sony PlayStation's PlayStation Plus offering. And I think they're doing this after the Xbox Game Pass, right? Which had quite a few interesting options available. So in June is when the launch is. Could you take us through what the offering is all about and what people who are contemplating buying a console right now should think about?
Right. Yeah, Alex. So basically, the launch has already started off in some countries in Asia, especially Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong. It's only in India, which PlayStation India comes under PlayStation Europe. So India gets the launch towards the end of June, and the North American launch will also follow soon. Uh, it's not PlayStation Plus as per se. PlayStation Plus has always been Sony's offering. It's what you need to buy to be able to play online. But PlayStation is following Microsoft's lead over here with as they've had Game Pass, which was basically a Netflix for video games with about 100 odd games on it. But Sony is taking a slightly different approach. They've got multiple tiers. So you've got the PlayStation Plus Essential, you've got Extra, you've got Deluxe, and Premium as well. It's all a little confusing because of how they've divided the entire the hierarchy of what you'll be getting with your service. But prima facie, PlayStation Essential is going to be the same as PlayStation Plus as it exists today, which basically means that you're going to get between 2 to 3 games a month, as you have always been getting. You'll also get online saves and the ability to play online. Bumping up to PlayStation Plus Extra gets you about 400 odd games. Now, these are not going to be the absolute latest games as you get on Game Pass. Microsoft's thing with Game Pass is that you're going to get all the latest games day and date, and the roster is about 100 odd games. What Sony is focusing on is the back catalog and some of the heavy hitters on the platform. So you're going to get PlayStation 4 and some PlayStation 5 games, and it's already got some very interesting titles. Days Gone is there from the PlayStation 4, but newer titles like Returnal is also on the platform as well as the new Spider-Man game. So there is quite a lot for gamers to look forward to. Things get a little more interesting when you step up to the premium and the deluxe tiers. In India, the deluxe tier is also going to give you PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 games, which is an interesting proposition, as well as some remastered titles from the PS3 era. What India misses out on is cloud streaming. Now, Sony is also combining its PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now service through this new offering. PlayStation Now has been their game streaming service, which lets you play video games without having to download it to your console. It all runs on a server, and you're essentially playing remotely. But the deluxe tier, the premium tier, which we're not getting in India, is going to have a whole lot of PlayStation 3 games as well on it, and that's not going to be available in India.
Okay, I think you've laid it out very nicely. But how does it stack up? And we also had the data point on the pricing. And it is quite interesting, right? So what you've essentially said is if you have a PlayStation Plus membership right now, you automatically become a basic user of the new PlayStation model, right? But how did this offering stack up in terms of pricing and availability of games to the Game Pass? Because that's really what you would compare it to.
Right. It's quite interesting because Microsoft is obviously targeting both Xbox and PC users, and they have a service called Game Pass Ultimate. Now, that's the service which gets you games both on PC and console, and that costs about 11,999 rupees thereabouts. And of course, you can also get individual services for PCs or consoles, which are in the ballpark figure of anywhere from 4 to 6,000 odd rupees approximately. Now, price-wise, Sony service is fairly competitive because the base tier is just 2,999 rupees. However, that does not get you any of the catalog of games. So to get anywhere close to Game Pass, you absolutely have to step up to one of the higher tiers, which starts at around 5,000 rupees for the year. Now, 5,000 rupees on Sony's platform gets you about 400 games, but these are not going to be the latest games. And it really comes down to what your play style is, and what you're expecting from each service. Because Microsoft's service is going to get you uh, you know new games day and date, but both platforms have a certain expertise. Microsoft might be more geared towards shooting games, for example, whereas Sony's games are more story driven. Um, and I mean, on the basis of that, it really comes down to your preference and your platform of choice, which helps you decide. But looking at the price points and their individual propositioning, uh, they're taking very different approaches towards solving the same problem, which is basically creating a Netflix-like library of video games for gamers um, through their subscription models. And it is certainly interesting to see Sony taking a different approach from Microsoft.
Really excited to see how that pans out because it's a really interesting prospect, right? And we could see different iterations over the course of the next couple of years. But having said that, one of the most important questions which I have to ask you is which you would suggest people look at, because you're talking about a whole bundled product, right? You're talking about the hardware, which you would be talking about in terms of the PS5 right now, or maybe the PS4 Pro because of availability, as opposed to the Xbox offerings. That coupled with the online service, which do you think is a better offering right now?
For a gamer like me, who is not particularly into online gaming, and I mean, at least on Sony's platform, there are a lot of gamers who are into these story-driven experiences and not necessarily into shooters or games which have too much of an online component. From that point of view, yes, Sony service actually does make a lot of sense, and they've done a good job of balancing out the library. There's a lot of long story-driven games available on the platform. They've even tied up with Ubisoft, so Ubisoft's games will also be available on the PlayStation, on the new PlayStation Plus tiers. And I think the right balance for prospective buyers will be PlayStation Plus Extra, which is the tier which gets you 400 odd games across the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Anything older than that, I mean, I've grown up on PlayStation,
Yeah,
so the PlayStation 1 and 2 are close to me, but a lot of those games haven't really aged that well,
right.
and some of the younger gamers might not really resonate with those games, so it might not really make sense to spend that additional amount towards those games,
Fair enough.
towards that tier.
Fair enough. I guess it also depends on, like you're saying, what you've grown up with. Because I know a lot of photographers, for example, that will either choose a Nikon as opposed to a Canon, or maybe even the new age camera guys who will choose a Sony. So we'll have to talk about that the next time for sure. Dhruv, thank you so much for joining in, for taking the time.